My name's Bert Sturtevant. I've been teaching public high school shop for 31 years now. Cambridge and Maplewood both. Tonight we're going to go over, and he took the title away. I was going to read it off the paper. Shallow theme platter, I think, is what we came up with to do it. I'm going to share a few of my experiences, and some of them are kind of unique because of my teaching position. First of all, though, this is my third time that I've been able to present for Presque Isle. This is the third time I presented, and this is the third different lathe I have run for presentation. They keep getting prettier, and I don't have anything this pretty in my garage, and certainly not this pretty at school. So,
how many outs?
What's that?
How many outs? How many people caught it after it came off the lathe?
So I always bring Dave my mitt just in case, because I usually do things. The first time was a crooked tree. The second time was a segmented bowl, which could blow apart. And this third one, I'm going to show you how to prevent it from coming off. But this, if you're doing it with just the chuck and nothing holding the platter in, we see them zing across the room quite frequently. So I first encountered the shallow theme platter several years ago. I was taking a day-long or a couple of day-long workshop provided by Presque Isle Woodturners. It was over at Bill Blasik's house. The Duxbury's were teaching it, and as one of their small projects they threw in there when glue was drying or something like that, they had some hearts and some small leaves, and this was about the size of the platter. Of course, my wife says that everything I do, I have to grow bigger. So my platters are mostly bigger. I did a couple of them, hated sanding them, put it on the shelf for a long time, then started thinking about, well, if I wanted kids to do this, how could I make it so it was easier and more enjoyable for them? So basically what we're doing is starting with a pattern, and I have a pile of patterns that we've developed. We're throwing it and drilling a hole to throw on our chuck. Then we're cutting the spigot on the back that we can grab the chuck when we do the inside. So this is where we're trying to head. What I've been doing this year, I've put out kind of a challenge, what we call them assignments, that they could practice with one or two of my patterns. You know, right around Christmas, I started playing around with the acorn and doing it multicolored. I have an acorn. I got it in this pile that's even wood burnt. So they could practice on one of mine, then they could go ahead, and I wanted them to come up with their own idea. And I would help them develop their pattern. So we're going to Google, and we're going and searching whatever school appropriate. And when it comes up, if we go up into the top there, we've got images, click images, and then you want to look, and quite often you can find coloring book, coloring sheet, and you'll find lots of things like this with whatever your theme would be. And then, you know, we adjust it if we need to. Some of the ones that we've done, this was one that a student has been working on. He brought me this pumpkin, and I said, well, that's a little bit squatty, so why don't I take and throw it in the Word and make it more the shape of what a platter would work out, easy to turn. So we went ahead and did that. There's tons of different stuff, and I'll show you as we go through some of the different options with this. In fact, I have brought and stapled together a little packet. The acorn and the shamrock are ones that I have developed and worked with. The pumpkin is one of my students did that, and then the two that I started with from the Duxbury's, and there's copies here. And if you look through my patterns or see another platter that interests you, you certainly can take a trace of them. I don't care. The only one I don't have a sample, I believe, here is this. Mark remembers this. I had a young lady a couple years ago that if it was everything candy corn. So we glued together 3 colors of wood, the colors of a candy corn, and we made several of them. And I did not locate one of those in the garage before I came. So then I've developed a pattern, and I'm putting them on wood because I'm going to have this stack of patterns for years for students to look through the catalog and choose something and go ahead and turn it. Some of the ones that we've been coming up with lately, these are ones that the students have brought to me, and then I have helped them develop it. Got a sunflower. This has got a little bit of wood burn embellishment on it. Mark hasn't even seen all of these. We've got the fish. And there's a trick to some of these, because just turning them like this, we've got the monkey. We've got the duck. And just today, I was working on the sea turtle. And just like a number of you, I could hear and see and witness when I yeah, go ahead. When I was showing them why are we doing these platters? Because they're fairly simple, they're skill developing, and they bring joy. People chuckled when they looked at some of them, so they can just bring a little bit of happiness and joy. So we're gonna turn one, and then we're gonna go into some finishes. I have a bad news. We have a little bit of bait and switch. We will not be doing alcohol dye tonight because my arms are not long enough to reach it sitting on my table saw in Cambridge Springs. So I forgot my box with my alcohol dyes, but we will spend some time talking about fire sanding and some water-based dyes. And perhaps at some other time we can throw in some alcohol. However, we do have a special treat. I have a couple very nicely done, well done alcohol dyed bowls we'll hold up for you to see in a while when we get to it. All right, so I start by tracing my pattern. All my patterns have a center hole in them. You've got to take the scratch awl and you got to thump on the center hole to know where to drill. We put a few blanks on the raffle table over there. They're not drilled because I don't know what size your chuck is. Okay, and so you don't need to drill them, but I did bandsaw a few of them. Then I got to mess around and find the center. Most of the time, it's just measuring on the pattern and finding a mathematical center. The acorn did not work out quite like that, so we had try number 1. I didn't even like how it was coming out when I did the backside. We had try number 2, and it was going to open up too high and not do much down there. So then try number 3 with the center, and I found where I kind of liked it best. So you may have to play around if you're developing your own idea and pattern as to which one is going to be the best, either mathematical, but maybe you're looking more for the visual center, depending on what the shape is. Remind me before we stop, after the fish and them come back around, I'll tell you how I did some of them. Some people were saying that I was breaking the rules or cheating, but I write the rules, so how could I break that? How could I break? All right, so what we have set up here, I've got a small chuck. I've also brought, somebody said, oh, you brought lots of chucks. Well, if I make it too big, I can just switch to a different chuck and not return another piece. So I've got hooked a small chuck. This other side, though, a lot of people would take and throw a point in there, and a point is fine. Some people would turn it without it, and that's when I have to duck because they're throwing them out. When we get so that we're not round, and even when we get big round, when we put pressure out on the outside edge, it's going to peel it out of that chuck fairly quickly. There's only a few people in the room that think that that wouldn't happen to them. I've had it happen to me several times. I'm going to send around the setup that I have in there. I'm using the extension because, of course, I have nothing this large at home. This one probably I could have done it, but I brought my stuff because this is how I do it with the students. We either have an extension and then this is a mandrel saver for turning ink pens. It slides over the end of the thing. They're as cheap as a live center is. I like these for a lot of projects because if we have a point like on the tops, what I'm doing right now with the eighth graders, when they get their point shape, they can engage this back over and finish cutting where they twist down thinner. I mean, for an eighth grade turner, that's important to keep things secure so that they don't get excited. So I use this quite often, and we have just as many mandrel savers as we do live centers uh, in our shop right now. So I already have this mounted up here. Now, the things we're going to be looking at, I'm going to flatten first to make sure that my timber is fairly flat. If you're going to do a laminated couple pieces of wood glued together, take your time. Good jointed edges. Use a good quality glue. I use Type On glue. That's on too most of the time. Don't starve your joint for glue, and then don't overpressure and clamp it and force all the glue up. If you choose to not listen to the don'ts, then you'll probably have pieces flying all over the place. Listen as I turn, and you'll probably be able to see it on the video. It's like you're not turning much of anything way, way out. And you just have to be patient as you go. So we're going to start with just a gouge. Let's try that. All right, we'll start with a gouge. Is that going to work all right like that?
Yeah.
And I just want to flatten you know how long that takes to draw it out to the end. I just want to flatten it just a little bit to know that I'm feeling pretty flat. And then I'm going to come in and cut the outside of this. And I'm going to go down probably about a quarter of an inch. The material I'm using is about an inch thick. Then I can come back in and I want to flatten it. I'm not worried so much yet. It's still big and chunky. I don't know if we can see it from any angle. If I get it like that, maybe. I'll worry about that in a little while. And I'm going to have to be real careful when I do that because I don't want to tear that up. Now I'll go back in and I try to get them to listen to me. Square corners are tougher to sand, so I like to roll that into a rounded corner there. That will be easier for me to sand. Now I'm going to come back out and pay attention to this. I'm only cutting that in one spot every rotation. That's why you hear that clicking. This is a great tool rest for me, the lazy turner. I can rest my arm right up there and be steady. And if you watch, instead of trying to pull it and control it, I'm curling a little bit there as I come around. Now, I'm not cutting much there, so I don't have to be real aggressive out there to keep up with what I'm doing back there. Wow, that was that.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
RPM were you running that at when you first started, initially, and why?
And Bert, for the folks on the Zoom, if you could repeat the question so they can hear it.
Yes, what RPM and why? I wasn't even paying attention to it. I was just running, I mean,
I'm just curious.
I would turn a lot quicker, probably Jake would turn a lot quicker than some of the other ones. I try to keep them down around 1,000, so things aren't happening quite as fast for right now. I'm sure I was probably going quicker than 1,000. I'll try to remember to look, because I'm using the speed control to turn it on and off, so.
Sure what we screwed up.
Right now, I'm at about 900. And I just want to start rolling that down back into my flat. Sometimes with some of the students, we find after you start to bring that in around, but check to make sure you're not going to crash. If we bring the tool rest a little bit to match that angle, they're having a little bit better luck with it as well, because then they can get onto their edge here. And my advice to the students is just engage it and turn it to where you're getting a decent chip or shaving and you feel comfortable with it. I can't tell them that, 6 o'clock or 2 o'clock is going to be the right for them. But I'm just going to switch to a little bit smaller. Yeah, let's maybe move that a little bit there. Don't adjust tool rest while it's running.
And just for confirmation, Bert, you are turning the bottom.
I'm
right
turning
now.
the bottom first. And we'll want to finish the bottom completely before we start hauling out the top, because with these being such irregular shapes, to hold it on a set of cold jaws or something is a lot of effort. And I'm just switching to this little bit smaller one, because quite often I can get a little bit cleaner. Fading across there. It seems like it takes forever sometimes to get to the end of that. And if you can see it, there's tear out there, and that's why I say this is a fun turn. If you're still learning, I mean, certainly, if I wasn't in such a hurry, I could go in and probably clean that up a little bit more. But I want to move on to the next little bit. So now I want to clean out the inside. On about 1,000, 1,100. You can make some sort of a gauge or some sort of, you can get your calipers out of your dividers and then mark it. You should probably measure the size of your chuck. I've turned enough of these that I'm just going to risk it at where I am. This is nothing wrong. Might take one more cut with my parting tool. Boy, that thing goes quick fast. So next time you schedule and want me to come in and demonstrate, I'll just pick this one up because I'm sure there'll be a different one.
I want this one around for a while.
I'm just cleaning out the rest of the inside of this. I'm not worried about hiding how I'm holding this. On a lot of the bowls and stuff, when you get done, you want people to look at it and say, I wonder how they held that thing on there. Not the point that I was after when I was doing this for the kids. I want them to have some fun and I want them to learn just how deep you have to go. Some of us don't have to go near as deep anymore. They have to go a little bit deeper when they start, and they'll start learning to pay attention to where their depth is. This one is the same thing, but you have to hold it up to the light to see it. By the way, those two pieces that are coming around, you're going to feel how soft and light they are. They are sassafras. I have found sassafras to be one of the materials that fire sands. Interestingly, most of the platters that are fire sanded up here on the table all of them that are fire sanded are sassafras.
It smells good when you turn it too.
It does smell good when you turn it, but not a lot of people tend to go after the sass or get a hold of the sassafras. The last I got some, it was fairly reasonable. This is part of how I am convincing the students to do the sanding, because then I will come in with my that is what we affectionately call in the Maplewood shop the 60 grit chisel. Here's the 80 grit.
So Bert, if you would, for those that may not know, why don't you sand this with the lathe spinning?
The precautions if you were going to try anything irregular. I like my fingers not broken. If I tried to sand out here, every time it come around, my hand would dip in, and you break probably a digit each time you went around. So
that's the importance of doing it
yes,
stationary.
we're not running this. This is not a bowl where you can power sand, blah, blah, blah. You need to do this while it's not running. If you notice, I go around once or twice and then I'm going to go in reverse just to clean up and take out any ghost trail right there. Also, you can see that I didn't worry about getting right around the rim or that, because if I go in cautiously, I can sand this part and this part. I wouldn't recommend going at 2000 RPM. I'll go in with a little bit of 100 grit. That's about as far out as I want to go. Get my top surface there. Paying attention to my knuckles around that. Do that little curve that I told you was a lot easier than sanding a square corner. Depending on how much you sand inside there and what the material is. If you're doing the sassafras and you sand the inside of this, you're gonna want to go back just before you take it off with your parting tool and do a very light skim to tighten up where your jaws are holding on to it. I've noticed the sassafras, because it is so soft, it will really slant my where my jaws hold in there. And that's something many of the students have to learn on their own after they've been instructed. So I did a little 100. This is, I think 120. And then I'm just going to run it up to, this piece is 280. I'm just jumping up quick on them. We'll take a peek at that and see what it looks like. It doesn't look horrible. Now, this was cherry and, but it wasn't me, so I didn't get my key out of my pocket. For tonight, I'm gonna call that okay. And then I've been trying to encourage the students to go ahead and go back in and at least give themselves a signing ring. You could go a couple more decorative rings in there if you'd like. Did bring Sorby, but I don't think we'll get them out. Really? And I just give that a little light sand to clean that up. Does the ring show up on it? Yeah. And I'm trying to start to really encourage the students to be starting to sign some of their work as they go. So that is the one side. Chuck D here.
Now, for our newer turners, can you walk us through how you load and unload the chuck, if you would, real quick?
So, first of all, if your hand comes away from the chuck, the key should come with it. Secondly, we put it in there. To take it out, I can just take and loosen it on the one side. I'm going to kind of look around and see that I'm pretty close to parallel, not knowing for sure if this is completely flat until I turn it. And then I mean, there's so many different chucks out there now. I usually bring it in, holding it tight there. Sometimes with the students, I actually have them go ahead and push the ram in to hold it so that it bottoms out flat. But I'm holding it so it bottoms out flat. And when I skim this side, it should parallel me to the bottom. If I cut straight. If it's got two holes, a lot of people are saying you should probably tension on both of the holes. If you're using Tommy rod, you should Tommy rod however many different places, just to make sure that it's all settled in there. And I usually check it to see how it feels.
Again, for those that couldn't see, you were expanding into the opening.
I was expanding into the opening instead of closing down on it. Yes, I didn't catch that. And I'm gonna throw my center back up there because I'm gonna be working out here on the outer edge, first of all. And I don't have to put a ton of tension. I'm not worried about this bouncing and vibrating a whole lot because I'm not putting a lot of tension, but Dave is at the ready.
You gotta put the glove on, Dave. To really be ready.
Now, a little bit different than on the back. I'm gonna start with my smaller gouge because I want to be able to sneak in past my spinning mandrel saver to open that up some, and then we'll start dragging across. We're gonna check and make sure we're not crashing, make sure our pull rest is tight. Put that thing down. I can see that is bouncing a little bit. Or hold it in the chuck, it could be fine. So I just want to keep that out there. About 1,000. And you just want to roll your chisel to where you can feel like you're still controlling it and it's not grabbing. The more you open it up, the more it's going to want to grab. Some of the students get really excited at this part because this is really fun. And then they get really small really fast. So you want to be careful about what you do there. Then I just keep dragging it out and blending it back in. Some of them I have trouble. You can push or you can pull, whichever you like the best, or you can do both if you try and clear it out quick.
So Bert.
Yeah.
Could you please go to the overhead camera and show which edge of the, so it'll be right over top.
Yeah.
Which edge of the gouge are you cutting on?
I'm cutting down this side here.
The bottom side.
Okay. I mean, what, if I'm digging in that way, I may be engaging up here on the point a little bit more, but I'm using right along that edge. I'm dragging it. Hear that squeal. If I didn't have something here and I start getting that squeal, the next thing is boom. So. So I think this has saved a lot of pieces coming off in the shop. I'm right now just to here on the stem. I'm looking to see that I'm getting out to the edge and to the point. I'm not gonna worry about the point or the very end of the stem right now. I'm gonna worry about my thickness here. Somebody that was doing, if they were doing this and trying to make a truly perfect platter, is going to try to look for this to be the same thickness all the way around, which may or may not if we're having fun and coming up with our own designs. If you look at some of the ducks and stuff like that, and the way I ended up figuring out how to do it, they're not going to be totally even. I'm finding when I get to that outer edge, if I engage lightly and push back in, then I'm not out here slipping into the hole and getting caught in it moving. So I'm sneaking right into there where I feel it. You ready yet, Dave?
Ready.
So I still have just a little bit of the point that hasn't been touched. And this up here, this is gonna get thin and it is not gonna be the same. And I'm gonna adjust it with the sander when I go back into it. I'll switch back to my small one and just skim that to take some of my bigger lines out of it. Now I'm really back on this part of the chisel here now. Cause I'm just trying to skim.
Where you gotta rotate with the camera. Cause the last time you didn't quite, you're
I'll go.
you're not cutting like that, you got it flipped over a little bit, right?
I've got it like that. I'm cutting with this edge and I've got it flipped down so that I'm dragging it across.
You're really scraping, aren't you? You're
Yeah,
pretty
I'm
much
really
using,
scraping.
you're using that leg of
Yeah.
the blade.
Well, and I meant to mention that. If you're still, this is a great way to learn how to play with your edges with your cow. You can go with some sort of a scraper and you can clear this out with scraping. You can do that. And some of our students do that for a while until we're really, and we're blessed because we have a couple of guys that this is pretty much all they wield. And they'll say, turn that chisel.
So you're not perfectly vertical with it. You've got it turned about
Not like
10
that.
to 15 degrees.
And I'm bringing
Does
it in.
does that answer your question, Todd?
Well,
He's not right.
you're making it look like you got, when it's running, it looks like you got it tipped up like this, but when you're showing on the camera, it looks like you got it tipped down.
This,
You're only like an eighth of an inch away from the top edge from not
Right.
dragging,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
right. Yep. Yeah, and I'm just dragging it from.
You're doing a shear scrape.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes. So I've got that cleaned up and I'm not worried about that little bit that I did not cut up here. If you start playing with that a lot, especially with your first few, you're gonna have no stem on your acorn. Then we'll move in and take out this center. And we're taking the center out on most all of them except for we found on the flower one. It made for a really neat place, and I think one of those went around.
Go over the
The flower
overhead,
one
yeah.
here, leaving it raised up in the center gives you a nice place for a burn or for different finish embellishments.
Turn it like a ball. I would come from the outside.
Now this time I'm cutting with a point and I'm pushing across that way.
scared. Otherwise. I'm sorry, Bert, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I may want to adjust up just a little bit so I'm coming right into my hole, or you can kind of push up at the end. So I'm less concerned about it coming out of the chuck when I'm in the center because I'm pushing down into the chuck jaws. If I were out here pushing, I'd want to still be engaged. So we've been experimenting with this stuff in class. I started really working on it just before Christmas so they could see me experimenting while they were working on other things. And they've been working on it this 9 weeks. I'll have more things coming out later in the year that I can bring to show and tell and show. Because tonight's presentation was, we had started talking about it and a couple of weeks ago.
Got pulled in.
2 weeks ago, it became real. So we probably had two today that really started going down right in that center, and that's when you get the acorn funnel. I'd leave it a little bit proud and then take it off with your 60 grit chisel.
This isn't a phone,
That's next week.
What's that?
How long until we put a camera on that chalkboard of dead platters?
Oh. Well, but you know, the nice thing about this is because is such a small piece of material. So far budget wise, we've been able to handle it. And some of the kids are really having a great time with it, and for a simple gift for somebody. Now, I have sold a few of these and anywhere from 35 to 50, depending on, I mean, if you're gonna get into hand sanding all these edges, and if you're gonna get into hand sanding all these edges and doing burning and doing alcohol or water-based dye, you're gonna have to have more for it. I'm going reverse now. I always like to finish by going a little bit in reverse. One thing I didn't mention on the back, I was palm sanding and then I did the sanding while it was spinning. If I'm going to do a water base or an alcohol dye on that, I'm going to want to hand sand it while it's not moving in the grain direction out where I just palm sanded it up to 150 with the 280 to blend the sheen of the sand. Alcohol dyes will show it every time. If you miss a spot and there's a blemish, I'll look at one of those and pass one around. Alcohol dye will show it right away. In fact, a lot of people are pre-moistening and sanding, pre-moistening with alcohol, sanding, raising the grain, pretty much like we used to at Fort LaBeouf with
Yep.
the water in between coats of sandpaper. So using the palm sanders is the first way to get buy-in for these young people to actually do enough sanding that it doesn't look too bad. And then the other is I brought in one of my Harbor Freight knife sanders to do the edges. So I'll take this off the chuck.
There's a little shelf on the bottom if you need it. That gray thing.
Oh, I've got,
You got something? Okay. Makes everything nice.
What is that?
It's a little miniature belt sander. I would probably more often call it a knife sander.
Never seen.
They're 55, 65 bucks at Harbor Freight. You can buy many other brands too. I'm not necessarily trying to sell out all Harbor Freight. You can buy this one or you can buy the one with the little disc sander on the side too. A little disc sander on the side at school would be kind of just a problem. Because they'd be zinging stuff off of that all day.
You deny that.
Oh, we have belt sanders. He has not even, well, did you touch it when Dewey had it out?
No, I did not.
Dewey had to ask and to use the belt sander because we don't do belt sander race. Oh, yeah, that's always fun. So I'll do most all of this with this little, I've taken the metal backing plate off so that it will move and contour. More often than not, I would use my little drum sander to do in the curves, so that may not look too finished. So I'll do one side so you can see what I'm looking for. Biggest thing with this is you can't hold it in one spot. First of all, everybody wants to sand it while it's still 1 inch thick. That's just wasting our grit. Wait until you get down to your narrowest and then keep it moving. Don't let it warm up the paper because you're just going to keep burning it and burning it and burning it. We want to get the burns out. We want to get most of the bandsaw marks out. I'll leave the bandsaw marks on the other side for right now. For when we pass it around so you can understand what I'm trying to talk about there. And then I have them put it back on the chuck with the lathe. And depending on, I had a couple people try the flowers. They haven't got real serious about sanding them yet. But I would, when I was practicing and sanding them out at home, I was even using my lock, my index, so that I could get down in between. So I could get down in between these and not have it move as much. So.
And you can lock that one if you want.
Well, this is not as big. It's, the heart, the acorn are very simple to sand. The, 4-leaf clover is not too bad. The oak leaf is a pain in the butt and you may want to lock it. The flower, you may want to lock it. Those ones. And so then I'll just go back in with my 100 grit paper. And again, at home, I would probably give this a little bit more attention, but I'm just trying to get you, because I want to move on to fire. I also knock the corners a little bit. Don't need to round it a lot, but give it a little bit of a knock. So this would be my 100 grit. When it comes around, you're going to see right here where I would normally hit it with my awesome spindle sander. I'll clean that up when I get home. Then I'd go to my 120. Honestly, about as diligent as I'm sanding here, for the first platter or two that I'm getting out of a lot of the students at school, it's gonna be comparable sanding, so. You know, from before I had that little knife sander to take all that work, if you're gonna get into making these and gifting them and having fun with them, you wanna have, I mean, for $50 and a 5-pack of belt sanding belts, and I think we were using the 150 of those. I think they're like $6 for 5. That's well worth my money for the time that I'm saving on that. So I would just sand it, the edges and everything, and go from there. And again, if I were alcohol dyeing this or something like that, I would have, before I took it off the chuck or lay it on a foam pad, I would blend the sheen all the way down into here for what I sanded while it was rotating. Or it will show up in the alcohol dyes for sure. So one side sanded there, that's the one we just messed with today. You can see what the difference is with that knife sander. Been playing around with other things. You could this one I was just playing around with to see what it would look like. I just opened up a hole in the center. That could be sanded while it's spinning. Then you could just sand the top of that. So that could be a fun. This one never got finished because it cracked back there and it has some glue in it now. Questions about the platter turn? Can you see what I mean about it being just a quick fun? I mean, if you got set up and once you understood how I'm doing. Broke your mic.
Just goes right back over.
All right, there we go. Do 3 or 4 before you say I hate this, because I mean, there's several in here that have told me, if you do 10 of them, you just start to understand what you're trying to do. You do 50 of them, you're getting, so you're pretty good at it. You get to 100 and, I don't know, Dick, how many ornaments have you made?
5507.
5507. So, well, and he can practically do that when he's up here. You have to ask him. I mean, he's a very good teacher though, but you kind of wonder, how did he figure that out? How is he so fast and good at that and that kind of stuff? So good. I get that pile of the platters that went around with the fish in that. I'll show you real quick how or where I'm supposedly breaking the rules if I can. So did anybody like the monkey?
Yes.
Okay. And, thank you. So one of the students wanted to try that and I'm like, boy, I just don't know. And the fish also, I just don't know. And then now the turtle. So the monkey, here's the monkey pattern, and the monkey's in here somewhere. So the monkey, this hair and these ears may not stay on during the turn. I mean, your percentage of success. So instead of cutting out these areas, we left them. I don't know if that, I'll pass this around with the pattern so you can see. We left, so here's the ear. We left all that on to give it more support. And then now you have cut this, you have turned this, you have round this. So if you're going back to the bandsaw, know how to hold on to it. Have your hands behind the blade, have your hands to the sides, because, or if you know it's going to rock and pull down, cut it in that position. There's safety issues involved in cutting this with this being concave on the back side. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, but that was, so I'll pass those 3 around. That's the same for the fish and the same.
Dave,
So here's the fish, how we are turning the fish. And thought I, oh, there he is, the duck. Yeah, the duck. So here is the duck just turned before I laid the pattern back on and cut it. Or I forget, here's the duck turned into a platter before I laid the pattern back on, traced it again and cut it. So, I mean, because the duck's neck was not staying on. The other one that was not working was the flower. We turn them, we turn it like this now. Then we go back in and we cut these lines with the bandsaw. And the nice thing about the flower one, I'll show you real quick with that knife sander that I've been showing. There's such thing as having too many examples, Mark.
they're all good.
So this knife sander now, I can go in, I can just get it in the crack if you have a thick enough bandsaw blade on your bandsaw. And then so I can just get it into the groove. And then when I come back out, I sand and round that to make that pedal curve. And that makes it a lot easier and more of a fun joy to turn. And you can see that one, I had cut the grooves before we turned it and it cracked and had to be glued just so it could be a teaching point later on. Does anybody have any other questions on the platter turn right now? Like I said, I have some patterns here. You're welcome to them. We can go from there. How are we doing for time?
We are at 7:20, so we've got about 25 more minutes.
All right, so let's do fire first. And if we get to the water base, we'll do it. And if we don't, we'll do it. I mean, I didn't know how long. So fire sanding. And it's a shame that Dustin's not here because I know how much he loves fire. So I have pre-turned an acorn out of sassafras, both sides. The fire sanding on this is really pretty simple. Pre-turned and sanded really quite well. Now I'm using
Bert, is that
Map gas.
map gas?
this one's just propane blue. Not that gas would be the
Yellow.
blue or yellow one. The yellow one's gonna be hotter and you're gonna find on thinner pieces, if you're using the map gas and getting it hot or faster, you're gonna have more cracking and checking. I'm gonna burn a little bit and then I'll move around and so I'm letting it cool. I'm gonna go around and hit that whole thing over again. Is it showing up on the?
Yep.
On the video, all right? You wanna watch for flames? Most of the time at home, I put the tailgate down on the back of the pickup truck out in the yard and lay my, all this whiteboard is that I'm doing the work on is the bagger board that you would use for your ceramic tile. To hang it on the wall or put it down on for a ceramic tile floor. And I just cut the pieces small. It helps save a bunch of black marks on the workbenches at school, black marks on my tailgate. I don't fire sand in my garage, probably because nobody cleans them. And there's a lot of dust in the rafters.
I think a lot of understatement.
So you really don't want to have a continuous flame. If it lights up, you want to get it blown out. And yet,
There's one across.
if you're blowing it out, you want to be careful. You're not sucking the smoke back in. Another good reason to do it outside most of the time. We're just doing a small one today, and I may not even get the edges. Sometimes the edges on the sassafras take a little bit more coaxing. Probably a good idea that I had the window open. I didn't think about it. Probably the smoke.
That's why I shut the door.
Gaze didn't set it off, though, did he?
There's no smokes in here.
Michael didn't set it off when he was here, did he? No.
No.
All right, so this is still pretty fairly warm. Now, here's the thing, and I brought, and we can go over, we can do it too. I brought a small bowl. You know what's gonna happen? So these scroll chucks, if you haven't bought one and invested in one, there are tons of them on the market. I'm finding them as cheap for the small ones as like this. This one's a Barracuda. I have a record power like it too. Right now, well, until prices go up with import stuff right now. Right now, currently, you can buy this size record power from the Utah catalog for about 99 bucks, which is not horrible. The bigger record power is like 159. Then you can go into some of the brand names, and when you go to the brand name, sometimes you're getting some really nice features where the things slide apart. So I could fire sand this in here, but this is how I would hold it. I could fire sand it on my thing. I probably in here, I don't want to scorch this nice lathe. So if I were to fire sand this, I would fire it down here. Here's the difference. If you fire sand something round, you're going to go in with your brush. Now, I'm talking a little bit while I let this cool down, so I'm not trying to lose my train. You're gonna scrape the carbon or clean the carbon out with a little wire brush, 99-cent Harbor Freight. Then, if it's round, you're gonna come in with your denatured alcohol after you've scrubbed all your carbon and wipe all the excess soot off. It dries pretty quickly. Then you're gonna come in with some sort of a friction finish. And this one's Mylan's, there's several out there. And with a towel, and you're going to friction it, and that stuff dries almost instantaneously, very fast. As you friction it, it dries, and it's dry. Then you can go in with your gilders paste, put it on with your fingers, and then turn the lathe on and burnish the excess off. What we're doing is we're sealing the top of the grain. We're not worried about sealing the bottom of the grain. We're sealing the top of the grain so that the gilder's paste will stick down in, but come off of the top easily as we spin it. The problem is when we go to a platter, we've already said we can't spin this and sand it. So if we can't spin it and sand it, we can't spin it to clean off our gilder's paste, and that's still pretty warm. So instead, after and I'm going to show you taking the carbon off of it, and this one's been done. After all the carbon's been scrubbed out with the wire brush, I set up and I spray some sort of, and this one's Krylon, but some sort of a lacquer and again, I'm not worried about loading and filling down in where I burned out the pores. I'm worried about coating the top surface where I want it to wipe off of the wood. And then I just have to do a little bit extra work scrubbing it out by hand to whatever desire. So all of those were all done by spraying it instead of using the way Michael K showed us when he was here, which we had classes with him once and he did a demonstration. So anytime when we have a class and Mark says, hey, we're gonna have a class, we need 8 or 10. Sign up because they're great classes and they'll get you and several in here have taken. Dave's taken some. Dave's always been
Bert.
around at them. Yeah.
How do you keep the spray paint from filling those holes? I mean,
It doesn't matter if it fills a little bit, but I'm spraying
still like,
lightly, several light coats, because I really don't want to, fill in those. I want the gilders paste to go down into those crevices. So if a little bit of it seals it, that's fine, but I don't want to load it up and make it so that it's all even.
Bert, could we pass around 2 samples that have been,
Pass anything around you want. These are sassafras fire sanded. There's 2 acorns there that have 2-tone that are, those are, and those were experiments. I'm still working on my lines on them. All right, so I'm getting cool enough now. Basically, you just go in and you're scrubbing, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see. I can see a little dust in it. Can you see the dust coming out?
you can
A little bit. What I'm doing is scrubbing the carbon, the burnt material out. And sassafras doesn't, I mean, if you really lay into it, and if I want to burn this deeper, I'll burn it, let it cool for a while, and then come back and burn it again if I'm trying to get that trench down in deeper. So I'm scrubbing pretty good because I want to get all that stuff out of there. Then I would, again, once I got it all done, I would wipe it clean with my denatured alcohol, let it sit and dry good. Then I would go in with my sprays and I would spray. And I'll put light coats on, 1-2 light coats in an evening on this side, let it sit next evening, a couple of light coats on the back side. I can pass this around. You can see that I can give you a towel to pass it around with so that maybe you won't get so much of the burned carbon. The top is where I scrubbed and you can feel, you'll probably get maybe a little bit of soot. Just wash your hands before you have bedtime snack. But you can feel where the burn has come out of that.
Good question.
Yes.
Could you use steel wool to do that or a Brillo type pad or anything? Or is it best just to use that wire brush?
I would probably just use, I haven't tried it with the Brillo pad. I don't know that steel wool is going to be sufficient enough, but I could pass the brush around. I mean, they'll last.
I think the
Probably
steel
have to be
wool would,
pretty-
the
it'd
steel
probably be pretty
wool would
coarse.
put pieces in there.
Yeah, the steel wool would cause problems with the
That's what I
dust,
wondered.
the dust and the finish in there.
Yeah.
All right, so. Questions, anything? All right, so this piece has been prepared, it's been burnt, it's been,
Christine, do you have a question?
you could, I suppose, if you wanted to, just to finish blowing it out. I usually use the brush and then I use, the denatured alcohol. You really, I mean, it will turn, but when that comes back around, I'll put a little denatured alcohol on it and scrub it. You'll see how black the cloth comes. It cleans most of it out. I mean, I suppose you could try it with the air compressor. I don't know. So I've been using experimenting with a couple different types of gilders paste. I've been getting gilders paste from the Utah Turner supply. And I've now started trying this Hampshire Sheen. This one is much firmer, waxier, dries out in the can faster. This one, it's a different formula. It feels more light and fluffy, I guess. would be the way to say it. I think that they will dry out more faster too.
I don't know. Not seen two.
But so basically, I've tried this with plastic gloves, and on the nights that I'm putting gilder's paste on, I just have colored fingers because the plastic gloves seem to be a problem. So I just pick one fingertip, and then I'm just going to be scrubbing that in to the valleys. And these small platters, you're going to get a lot of projects out of a tub of it. If you're doing a big bowl and you're spinning it on, spinning it off, you're going to have a lot more excess waste because I can spread this around. Like I say, ash looks a little different than the sassafras, but I figured since so many of us had seen some sassafras or ash done before, I would bring a sassafras part. I usually only do one side and then buff and then go to the other side so that it doesn't dry real quick, but we don't have the speed and the friction of the lathe to help us take it off. And then I get right in there. I'm all right with it being just a faint color down in. And I scrub going against the grain, with the grain. Now, when I pass this around, and this is, I mean, it's got some wax, maybe some paraffin, maybe some turpentine, because a lot of these formulas, this one's a turpentine-based one. So do wash your hands before you would stop for that snack on the way home. So it's gonna feel a little bit moist. And I'll probably go over it again and buff it out again before. And then I would do the whole platter. And I would let it sit up for a couple of days. Then I would sit it back up and I would take and put a couple of coats of a spray-on lacquer on the top, coat it to lock everything in and go from that, like that. So oh, yeah.
So is that one pre-sealed with,
This one I did,
lacquer?
I pre-sealed it at home with
spray
lacquer.
lacquer?
I left the back so you could see what it feels like and looks like. I mean, if some finish gets down in there, I'm not worried about it. But where I don't want it to stick is up on the highs. The valleys is where I want to push it in. So I would let that sit for a day or two, cure out, harden up, and then I would spray over it from there. And pretty much the same thing with the other gilder's paste. I would do the same thing. In fact, this Inca Gold is one of the ones that was on one of the acorns that was a 2-ton. So do you want me to do a bowl and do the friction finish on it, or you want me to move on to a water base?
Why don't you go to a water base? And then we'll wrap with that tonight. Just 7:30.
All right, so we're gonna go to water base. The product that I have that I've been experimenting with is there's a couple bottles up there, is unicorn spit. It's just the brand name. It's a fun name. There's a lot of other water-based dyes out there. When we start getting into the dyes, and this one, they're actually touting it as a gel stain. And this bottle, they're touting as a gel stain. Basically, they're saying it can be used as a water-based dye, a wash, or whatever. It's water-based, so we can cut it. This is cut with water. It's a lot thinner than that thick one. I've got two different styles of the unicorn spit here. I really love this one on oak, because oak has that open porous grain. And this has glitter suspended in it. This strain of them, it's called a gel strain, but it's called sparkling unicorn spit. So if you look at some of these up here, some of them, if you look closely at them, and it's just a hint of, but that glitter will stick down in the pores of the oak. Now, if you can use these water-based dyes and spin them on an object on a lathe, but if it's the one with the glitter in it, when you spin it and dry it out and even it in, it's going to strip all the glitter back off. So this is probably going to be a hand rub finish. I put a little bit on my cloth and I rub it in. It seems like the sparkling one is a little bit lighter, so I have not been cutting it with water. I don't know what that would do to the glitter. And I should have done the purple one because it really shows up. This one's kind of a washed out effect with the blue. There is a couple up there with the purple and the kind of the magenta. One day magenta.
Didn't get enough of it.
When you start getting into these dyes and the stains, especially the alcohol, but even the water-based ones, they will raise the grain. So you may want to go back. I'm not so much worried about it on the oak because it's porous and it already has that open, uneven grain. But if you're looking for a really smooth finish on your finish buff out, you may want to have a plan. And I hate using steel wool because of the steel wool dust that it leaves. So you may want to go to the Brillo pad the way you were talking because it doesn't, I don't believe it leaves as much of the wool dust.
Have you just tried raising the grain first with some water and then going back and putting it on?
Yes. Well, and I'm going to show you the orange, and I'm going to show you a couple different ways that I have found demonstrations of how they do it. And on this oak, because it drinks it in, I would do a coat and then I'm going to let it sit and dry out and I'll do another coat so that I don't have quite as washed out. Because you can see on the camera there, it's washed out right now. It's not real vibrant.
Once you're satisfied with the depth of the dye, if you went 2 or 3 coats, you could finish over top of this, right?
Yes, I'll let it dry out completely. So I'll let it sit for several days. And then some of the instructions said to use a water-based finish, but I've been spraying it with this. After it's dried, let it sit for a week and then so that all the moisture is evaporated out. You don't want to trap moisture in there because that will cause a bubbling or cracking or caking that way. So you'll see a little bit, and if I go with a second coat, now this is going to feel damp. I don't think it's going to transfer a lot of color to you. Does it feel like it's going to give off? Because it soaks it in pretty quick and completely. Again, still with the water-based dyes. They're showing in different samples YouTube videos. A lot of YouTube videos to figure out this stuff. They're actually showing that to give you more open time. Just to show you what this coming out of the bottle, this is pretty thick, almost paint-like. See how it's sticking right to the cloth, almost paint-like. So what they're saying is you can take and moisten where you want it to go, and it's going to, and I like this where I can see the wood grain through the color is what I'm looking for. So if I do this on this side, like that, but on the other side, I do a little bit with a dry cloth where I didn't spray it. Dry over here. See it? Can you see the depth and the dark? See? So, but I really. For traveling bottles, and then I'm getting almost a little bit in between. It's not as light as this, but I definitely see more grain than I do there.
Yeah.
You see, can you see that?
Yes,
In the
yeah.
picture? I'm looking there. So, I mean, depending on how deep and vibrant you want it, you're gonna have to play with it, maybe sample blocks all the time.
How much did you delete?
Here is a sample block, and I just sprayed a little bit of this on it, but I didn't go back over and buff it out. I could buff out some of that raised grain feel yet. So this side, they were all pretty much full strength.
There's a question, how much did you dilute it?
Oh,
The orange, right, Dave?
this orange, I filled about a quarter of the bottle, and then I put about another quarter, so half. So about 50%, about 50. I'd say 50 cut, maybe 40, 60 cut. And there again, it depends on how dark to how much you want to reveal the wood grain through. I have not experienced, because Dave was already asking, can I take and do a couple, 2 or 3 colors and dilute them with water and pull them like the alcohol dyes can be? And we have a couple samples that you would take a peek at here in a few minutes, where I think that was some of the tricks that Bill has used. I have not got that far yet. I had 2 weeks to finish making some samples and everything. But this stuff is exciting me, because look at the bottle. This stuff, they are saying it's non-toxic, water-based. They even put a pleasant smell. It tells you what the smell is on some of them. This one's jasmine scented. The people that developed it, if you go on their website and start doing a reading on it, they developed it initially because they were looking for a product that they knew was safe to use in adult daycares. Not adult daycares where people just sit and don't do anything, but they were refinishing pieces of furniture they picked up along the side of the road, and they wanted to do colorized things, but some of the gentlemen and ladies didn't want to cover up the grain of the wood and all that. You get on YouTube and look up unicorn spit. There's a lot of stuff out there, and they have their own YouTube site, and it's pretty neat. So this excites me because of the young, especially the younger people in our shop classes, and that I want them to be able to bring color if they want and not have the fumes. And I mean, I didn't have to put this glove on. The lady that demonstrates it's not wearing gloves at all. It's going to color my fingers. So I put it on so my wife doesn't yell at me when I get home that I have all these colored fingers. But the alcohol dyes, don't touch them without gloves. And a lot of them don't touch them without super ventilation or without respirators. You really want to watch what you're doing that way. So, I mean, I think we're getting some pretty neat colors without the volatility of the chemicals, which this is the stuff that is helping to excite some of the youth tournament stuff, is having this kind of fun. So, any other, you want me to pass this around so you can see? I mean, let's pass it around. It's dry. So the one all the way over was full strength, mixed with the water bottle and in the spray. So there's 3 different effects right away. And this stuff, the big bottles here, I can't find anybody locally to buy this. So I've been going to Amazon. A couple of the wood turner houses have started carrying some of it. But you're gonna pay a premium. Go on and buy the bundles, the 7 to 20 bottle bundles. And they sell it in 2 different sizes, the small and the large. I think this stuff's gonna last for quite a while unless I let it sit out on the counter for the kids and that's what it's for. I mean, and we wanted to show some of the coloring and dye just because, you know, as part of your theme platter, it's not just coming up with your pattern and the turn. It's about how you decorate, how you embellish it. I passed one around, did I not, that had wood burning on it? The acorn or whatever. Get out your wood burner, try it. Get out your power carver and try it. Jacob, I asked him, he brought in a couple of his. He has done some CNC routing on the lips and then turned them. Maybe not the holiday theme or the theme of the duck or whatever, but a very mechanical theme nonetheless. He's got some other ones coming that are really kind of great. So, is that?
That's awesome. Yeah, let's go to questions. Any questions for Bert on turning, on fire sanding, on the use of dyes or the use of the unicorn spit? Any questions? Bert did an extremely thorough job. I need to give him credit. We had a change in demonstrators. Our March demonstrator needed to move to April, and Bert and I had a conversation about this theoretically, and with 2 weeks' notice, he's turned out more samples than I could imagine. I understand that. But Bert, awesome job, very thorough.